So I just got done editing this video you're about to watch, and I wanted to make a quick note that this is going to be video 1 of 6. This Rocky Mountain Hammer is number 1, but I want to acknowledge that it's a little awkward that a mountain bike conversion is what should take the number 1 spot, because the typical bike that I'm usually focusing on and obsessing about is this vintage style bike. The horizontal top tube, curved forks, large gravel tires. This has got a 700 by 47 tire. This is another 700 by 47 tire. And I've recently acquired this. This was given to me by the good people at Concord Bike Kitchen. I've got my beloved fixation quiver that I've had for probably the longest 10 years, which is a really long time for me, being like such a bike tinkerer. And I've got one last one here, this giant FCR, which we acquired from our customer Chris when we were leaving our Emeryville location. I'd given this to my brother years ago, and he never used it. Don't blame him. I couldn't ride it either. I had to convert it to make it fun. So all of these bikes represent sort of the genesis of how a gravel conversion begins. Typically starts with a bike that doesn't have much cash value on Marketplace or Craigslist, and it's if you're going to keep it, if you're going to get rid of it, you don't get much. But if you keep it, this is something you can do to add so much more value to this bike. Or if you're going to build it for a friend or for a relative, these bikes have so much potential for being loads of fun, being incredibly unique, having a lot of meaning, sort of exemplify resourcefulness and just creativity, without being an off-the-shelf cookie cutter bike. As good as they may be, as high value as they may be. So I really like this build. This is a mountain bike that I don't quite know that they call vintage or not, but I think it is, because it's probably 20 years old, this frame, and I'm trying to redefine what vintage means, at least to me. And in one way, I think vintage is bikes you can't sell for what they're actually worth. So I tried to sell this to Play It Against Sports. It's like a reused sports equipment store nearby, and I almost sold to them. They were going to give me $60 for the mountain bike configuration with the flat bars and everything, and I didn't take more than 5 seconds to be like, sorry, no, that's just not worth it. And I think what makes a lot of these gravel conversions so tempting to do is that these are obviously not landfill, but they're obviously not worth $60 or selling for $60 unless, I don't know, you're just super desperate for the space or the money. But so then you end up keeping it. And I usually keep vintage steel lugged frames from the 80s or 90s, but this is like a 2000s bike, and I'm just so happy with it. It took a while to actually find out that it was worth it, because I couldn't figure out the fit. The fork that came with it was a lot longer, so the front end was a lot higher. I tried it with flat bar. I rode it around for a while, and then something about flat bar, it's fun. It's really great on descending technical stuff or steep stuff, but majority of my ride is not doing that quick descent. It's riding, it's going up hills, it's pedaling along on the flats, it's riding to the trail. So inevitably all my bikes end up with drop bars. So what really made this bike come to life for me was figuring out that the handlebar, for me anyway, needed to basically match my road bike position, and it was a nervous feeling because I had ended up dropping the stem all the way down to the headset and I just ended up cutting off the steer above it because it was so comfortable, that surprisingly so. I thought higher would, I mean, I've been working on bike fit for so long, and I still am never quite sure what will be actually comfortable, and higher is just not comfortable. And I typically flip the stem so it's pointing down, but I kind of liked how this stem followed the line of the top tube, like the angle of the top tube kind of went along in the same direction. So that was forgivable to me, to slam it but point it up. So again, I used Campy Ultra Shift levers. These are the 9-speed edition. I found these for $100 in brand new condition at the used bike shop in Berkeley. And one of the best reasons for using these is they plug right into Shimano drivetrains. You don't have to change this derailleur, you don't have to change that derailleur. The one thing I did change was I went to an 8-speed cassette instead of the 9-speed that originally came with. And in fact, I left the chain as a 9-speed. Just so you know, those are totally compatible, 9 to an 8-speed cassette. So I didn't have to change any of the drivetrain, and I was surprised at how perfectly well these chain rings shift. I'm using wax lube now, and the wax is just, I think, a big help to not getting chain suck issues. This Mega 9 front derailleur, it has perfect leverage compatibility with the Campy front shifter, and the Dior, to make them work with Campy, I'll have to credit Brian Jenks from Hubbub for the millionth time for at least coming up with popularizing this when no one else thought it was a good idea. But if you turn the washer and then run the cable along the inside, you can see, and then loop it around, then a 9 will shift an 8-speed cassette, a 10 will shift a 9-speed cassette, and so on. So the bike just happened to come with BB7 road brakes. Another reason I didn't want to sell this bike off. Gonna need a zip tie there. Came with these hard rock flak jackets with inner tubes, and I think they're fine. There's some really sandy and rocky single track up here. Another thing I want to say, this is one of the most underrated saddles. I see a lot of these in the used bins, and this is such a great saddle for mountain biking. So cushy in the back, especially right here, with a little bit of it kind of scoops up right at the edge here. So when you come back, you feel like you got a lot of support, especially on steep climbs. It's not wide. It's one of the narrow saddles that is comfortable, but has very flat shape through here. Actually almost kicks up. It's almost a reverse, like a concave top. So you have plenty of support off for your sit bones in the back. So there's plenty of room to get support. And with this channel, just helps with that pressure relief. I don't know, there's so many new saddles, short nose saddles. We have some specialized power saddles, the Shimano time trial saddle. There's a lot of benefits to the new ones, but I'm always impressed with how well those these old WTB rockets feel. And especially if you're running a drop bar and you have like your pelvis kind of rotated forward. So very happy. This front shock I found for 30 bucks, I think at also at Street Level Cycles in Berkeley. Pretty plush. It's elastomer bumpers, and I had to sort of modify the post mount. Actually, I had to modify the brake to fit the post mount spacing. I think the post mount eye to eye on these is like 4 millimeters shorter than normal. And I think back then no one really knew because everyone was using V brakes. So anyhow, that's my Rocky Mountain. It's definitely something that surprised me. I thought it would be too small, but it turns out it fits perfectly, much like a 54, 55, like most of my frames. And I don't know, let me know if you have any questions, but just wanted to share it because I'm so happy about it. That feeling you get when you finally like nail a build and it fits you, shifts perfectly, and just allows you to shred at will.